Hey everybody, welcome back to the Acoustic Shop channel where we bring you the best in acoustic music and instruments. Today we have a very exciting video in store for you.
That's right, John. Are you guys in the market for a new Martin guitar, but you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with all the options out there? Well, you are in the right place. In today's video, we are going to give you the ultimate Martin guitar buyer's guide for 2024. We're going to cover everything you need to know to find the perfect Martin guitar for you.
Now the triangle tingles, the music plays slow, the farewell Angelina.
John, I think for anybody stepping there or dipping their toe into the Martin pool, if you will, that's weird.
Sounds a weird pool.
Somebody that's investigating Martins, they may want to know a bit of the history if they don't already. And it's hard to make it brief because these guys are the OG of steel string guitars.
This is a many a year all compiled, and
OG
a lot
original
of
guitar.
Yeah, OG is original guitar. Good job. This is some of the beginnings, and especially one of the biggest movements in steel string guitars done by Martin. So there's so much history here, all the way from 1833 till now.
Wow. And they started out in New York City, ended up in Pennsylvania, where they've been for the last 140, 50 years now.
Yeah, Nazareth, Pennsylvania is the home of Martin guitars, still is to this day. They actually started in a different facility, which they're actually showing people these days if you travel up there. But now they have a amazing facility in Nazareth. I think pretty much this is like Martin Guitars, Nazareth, Pennsylvania. They own Nazareth.
Town,
I think they own the entire.
It's like Hershey, Pennsylvania, but now it's Martin, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, everybody owns a guitar up there. And anyway, Chris Martin was kind of given the credit for creating the X brace, which is what most steel string guitars are using to this day, as well as the dreadnought. A lot of the things that we take for granted right now came from Martin guitars and their origins.
And some folks that may be watching this video because they want to learn about Martin, the X brace would be inside the guitar on the top, and it's really what allowed them to make the steel string guitars where the top just didn't completely explode. Because before then there was a lot of nylon string guitars, catgut, and different materials were used.
Catguts.
Catguts for reals, guys. And nylon string guitars, a lot less tension on the top of the guitar, but really developing that X brace allowed them to put the type of tension you have for steel string.
That, and it also created a much better way to transfer energy all the way across, because before that you had ladder bracing back and forth, and the X brace, it went from tip, well, it's actually from here across, and it distributed that energy from the strings themselves all the way across that top, and really gave them a whole new sound, as well as, like you said, strength. So this was really what became the modern day steel string guitar. So Martin Guitar has a bunch of different series of guitars. So if you go on the website, you're going to find that there's lots of different series, and you don't know necessarily what each one of them mean. So what we're going to do is break down all these guitars in their individual series, or at least talk about the series, so you know what the main points of each of the guitars in that series are. And we're going to start with the X series. The X series is and it's been reborn here recently, so this is actually a really cool and exciting series. This is their HPL material back and sides instruments. These are meant to be very rugged, very affordable, as well as less impact on the environment than probably anything else that Martin has ever built.
So it's a different way of doing a laminated back and sides that Martin really developed, and kind of, again, it was partly born out of lowering costs, but also being more environmentally friendly and kind of building a sturdy back and sides, holds up really well, has good resonance, and then still using that solid top on most of the guitars.
Yes, but make no mistake, this is not a wood laminate, because there's a lot of guitars out there that are laminate, and we know from talking to folks about this, laminate means plywood, basically. It's not a nicer way to say that. HPL is also a nicer way to say it. It's more of a synthetic material, very similar to like a Formica type of countertop material. It is slightly different, but it is in that same family of synthetic materials. It is thus the reason why it's a little bit more environmentally friendly, because it is
rugged.
but it's also very, very rugged. So HPL is that. It is not a solid wood. It is not a laminate wood. It is their own. And honestly, for my own personal taste, I like the ones that mix a little bit of both on the X series, where you have a solid top and then use that HPL material for the sides and back. And they've really come
And then
out with some
recently,
new...
you mentioned they just came out. It used to be just like one option for the print, because basically there's a print of
of a wood.
the wood grain. They've recently come out with some really cool options that look very attractive.
Yeah,
make the guitar look a little bit
you
more.
now have 4 wood choices. You have mahogany, you have zircode, you have Brazilian rosewood, and you have cocobolo. 5 options, koa. 5. So you have 5 different options within that series, and depending on what guitar model you choose, you can have one of those.
So who would you say the target demographic of this series are? We mentioned the price range for this. It's a value
This is
guitar.
by far the most affordable guitar.
You can own a Martin guitar for between $599 and $749, I think is the range.
So there's your number 1 option. Honestly, I think the secondary option that people are overlooking, they are extremely rugged. These take a little bit more of a beating than any wood will. So again, if you're looking for something that you're going to be banging around and knocking into stuff,
or if you have kids in the house and you want to have a guitar that you can leave out and they can strum on, I think it's a really good option.
Absolutely. All right, now we get into the road series. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. Guitars that you can feel more comfortable taking on the road. They're more affordable options. These are all built in Navajoa, just like the X series is. Now you can get to see in the road series, there are variants between some laminate guitars, back and sides, to all solid series. So you can find some of each in here. You do have the SC series. You do have the D10. And the 12Es, which are all solids. Those are really, really great guitars as well. Lots of options in here that we do have cutaway options, and we have electronics options. Again, this is a step-up instrument. This is something that, it's not just a beginner instrument.
For the gigging musician.
And something that you can kind of take. Again, most of these, I believe, have a padded gig bag, so they're meant to be something you could take out of the house and not necessarily worry about as much. Not the best level of instruments that they have, but definitely a step up.
And so these fall in that next price range above the X series, about $899 to almost just under $2,000.
Yeah. Because of the fact that you are seeing, like I said, laminate guitars, we're going to be closer to that $900 price tag. The $2,000 price tag is going to put you closer in with all the solid woods. The Modern Deluxe series. This is a fun series, actually. This was something that I think a lot of people should revisit, even if you're a traditional fan. These were modern takes on the standard, most popular models that Martin has made. The D28 and the D18s and OM28s and all those standard models, but they made them new with more modern features, a different playability neck shape. They used carbon fiber for bridge plates, so you actually got lighter weight and you have more strength in there. Did some really cool stuff like some inlay options and things. This is truly meant to be a player's guitar. This is something that has all the things that you would expect out of a traditional Martin guitar with upgrades, modern upgrades. Now, it does sound different than the traditional variations of these guitars, but that's not a bad thing. No. So definitely a series that you should kind of pay attention. Now, this one does get us a price tag of the $43.99 all the way up to $10,699. So this is, again, deluxe variations of these standard
Iconic
models.
guitars, yeah.
The Junior Series is also a really kind of unique series of guitars.
It's meant for me.
Yeah, it's for folks with smaller frames or just want a more comfortable, easy to play instrument. These are iconic body shapes, slightly smaller. So you have a dreadnought that is just smaller. Smaller scale, smaller body size. Triple O's that are even smaller. They're still well built. You can get solid wood versions of these as well as laminate sides and back. So there are a lot of options. These start at $599 and go all the way up to $749. Still, again, built in the Navajoa facility. Now we're going to get into our more what I would call standard series, the stuff that's been around forever, and that starts with the 15 series. 15 series has always been known to be an all mahogany instrument. They built every variation of Martin's body sizes in this, and I think most of those are still available to this day. It's mahogany top, mahogany back and sides. You can see it in a dreadnought. You can see it in a single O.
I think you have a tenor.
I do. I have a double O.
1940s.
Yep, a double O 15 tenor, which is really, really cool to have from 1934, I believe. Really cool instrument. They have had one change to this series, and that they're still calling it the D15, but the D15E is built in Navajoa. The rest of them are going to be built, as of right now, are still going to be built in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. The D15E also is a little bit different in that it will have a sapele, all sapele body shape, or body material, sorry, instead of all mahogany. Which are, sapele is a very close relative. It is different, but it is very, very close.
And so this one is, with that mahogany, you get a little bit more of a kind of a richer tone on the top.
Yeah, I'd say it's a muted yet dark kind of character to it. And yet
It seems like
there's
spruce
a balance
is very
warm.
punchy and like it really kind of
less
jumps,
in your face.
Yeah. So who would that be ideal for? Like who is looking for the all mahogany guitar? It's not as common as a spruce top guitar.
No, if you're recording something and you want a certain character, a warm character, the mahogany tops are definitely for that. Now these do have a price range starting at $12.99, going all the way up to $16.99, depending on what particular body shape you use. This guitar can be used for just about anybody. It does have a specific character, but I've actually known people who have used the Dreadnought D15 as a bluegrass flat picking guitar and absolutely love it. It is definitely not in your face near as much, but it does have a really cool, warm character. Now let's talk a little bit about 16 and 17 series. 16 series has gone through a lot of changes throughout the year, but as it currently sits, there are so many different options in a 16, but basically it comes down to these are more affordable options for higher end guitars. You have stuff like the 16-year holding. It does have, it's a Streetmaster, which has an Adirondack spruce top and a rosewood sides and back, but you can also find it with a mahogany sides and back and a spruce top. There's so many different options here, but basically more simple appointments, just a great player's guitar while working into the upper line of what Martin has made. And it's a variety of body shapes, Tonewoods. They all come with scallop X bracing. Just very, very similar to the 15 series, except lots more Tonewood options, more variation basically. Price points start at $17.99 and go all the way up to $22.99 as of when we film this. Now let's talk about the standard series. This is the stuff that just about everybody knows. This is the models that have been around forever. And just like everything else we've talked about, there have been changes. So yes, this is what they are as of 2024, but gosh, these models go back into some of these almost to the 19 teens and 20s. So you can find variations of these. Exactly. So this is your iconic models like the D28 and the D18 and the OM28 and the HD35, the D35, all of the standard models that we all know and love, and the numbering system. This is where it all started right here. And you will see the majority of what Martin builds out of here. Traditional style builds with these iconic body shapes and colors and everything that you would expect out of a Martin guitar. Most of that comes out of the standard series. So you started with a price point here of $23.99, working our way up to $39.99. Now we get to my personal favorite, and only because I'm a vintage Martin nut, the Authentic series. This was, everybody has talked about these iconic Martins from the 30s especially in the Dreadnoughts.
Yeah, on this channel quite often.
Absolutely. And I think it's because, you know, in our genre of music especially, this is the stuff that everybody is kind of searching for, and the sound that we all kind of lean on. And that is the guitars that were built in the 30s all the way into the 40s. The pre-war era right there. And they started rebuilding those as what they call the Authentic series. And they are authentic reproductions as much as possible of those guitars. They went back to using hide glue for these instead of the modern glues. They took away the adjustable truss rod and actually gave them the T-bar, or that, you know, truss, which is just a flat steel, not flat, but a steel bar in there, T-shaped steel bar in there to help hold it in place, but can't be adjusted over time. There is something to be said for that. Slot through bridges. This is your reproduction of it. Now, again, the D28s are a little bit different now. They're using Guatemalan rosewood instead of Brazilian in the Authentic series, but they're trying to assimilate as close as possible in a production level instrument a pre-war style guitar. So these go at $73.99 for a D18 non-aged, which they also have these, by the way, in a variation that has aged or worn or relict, I guess, antique style guitars, all the way to $94.99, and that would get you a D28 authentic that has been aged. So you will see their very special way of relicking guitar. Absolutely incredible guitars. We will be seeing definitely a few of those in here. I can't wait to play some more.
Me too.
Now let's talk a little bit about custom shop and signature models. This is the specialized stuff. And again, this could mean just about anything. Martin does have a customer shop where you could do any myriad of things you want. You want to build one out of sycamore and you would, whatever you want to do, they can get it to happen in there. Special inlay, yeah, you would. You can do special inlays. You can do anything you want. So you will see that, and they will say inside on the block, it will say custom shop inside there. And that way you will know that this came out of the custom shop. Now again, some stores get specific ones for their own store. Gruen was known to have his special Sinker D18s that everybody loves, D18 Authentics. Great guitars specific to his particular store, all the way to, you know, like I said, anything that you
Inlay
want.
patterns, and the prices can go through the roof depending on what you want out of your custom guitar.
Absolutely. And then you also, in that same category, is the signature models. So you have your Eric Claptons
John
and your
Mayer.
John Mayers. And then there were all kinds. There was Clarence White models. This all kind of falls into this. And some of those were very limited productions. Some of them are still in production. But again, they are very, very easily delineated by seeing the block, and you can see what's written on the block to tell you what it is. There is one more series that is kind of a little bit unique, and this is kind of one that I'm kind of hoping that maybe the Acoustic Shop becomes one of, which is the custom expert models. There is a custom shop expert. Only certain dealers are able to do that. I hope we can get there. Maybe you guys can help us to do this.
Pass a written
Yeah,
test.
you gotta. Anyway, this is a dealer who is actually certified to help you build custom guitars, which is what we love to do in here. But there's also certain models that they make that are only available to those stores. So again, if you're calling the shop and saying, "Hey, why don't you have this particular model?" There may be a chance that it's one of the custom shop expert models. So now let's talk a little bit, Jeremy, about some of the Tonewoods and their impact on sound. And these are not the only ones, but these are some of the most common things that you're going to see in a Martin guitar. Starting with some of the tops, spruce. There is really two that they're using most of the time. They have been known to use Engelmann spruce in the past. But we are mostly seeing Sitka spruce as well as red spruce or Adirondack spruce. Again, there, if you've watched the channel, you know that this is with every manufacturer. There are definitely tone differences between those two, as well as volume and projection differences.
And along with that, a price difference too. And
There
It
is.
can be pretty steep when you're going to the red spruce.
Absolutely.
And then back and sides, ever since we talked about those guitars they built in the 1800s, they were using Brazilian rosewood on most of those and mahogany back and sides. Still, the two most popular would be rosewood. Now it'd be East Indian rosewood or mahogany back and sides. Still, just about every manufacturer out there still loves those combinations of either rosewood back with a spruce top or a mahogany back and sides with a spruce top.
Martin was actually also one of the first companies using koa as one of their guitars. Back in the 20s, they were very, very popular using koa, especially with the Hawaiian music craze and slide guitar coming out. You got to see a lot of koa start to show up. Maple, obviously, has been used forever, so a much brighter sounding guitar. But each one of those is very, very popular, easy to find in a Martin guitar. Body shapes for Martin guitars, these are the iconic ones. Obviously, Gibson also falls into this category, and even Taylor now has more modern body shapes, but a lot of the body shapes that everybody's chasing are developed through Martin and how they had done it. Starting with the single O, this was their smallest body shape, or their, quote, parlor guitars. And honestly, it fit all the way through the single O, the double O, the triple O.
The more O's, the bigger the
The
body.
bigger the body, and it also still considered a parlor size. Most of those originally were 12 fret bodies. Now we're seeing a lot more 14 frets, and then the OM came out, the orchestra model. The difference between a triple O, for Martin especially, and an OM is they're the same body shape now, and they're both 14 frets. But the big difference between an OM and a triple O is going to be the scale length. So you'll have a short scale on a triple O. OMs will have the long or dreadnought full scale guitar. The single O has a high mid forward projection sound. It's going to be lacking in the low end to most degrees, but it will really give you a high end and high mid focused instrument. And the bigger you go, the more of that low end and expansion of that overall sound you get. Triple O will give you definitely a little bit more of those low mids and a little more richness. Then you get into the OM with the full scale, gives you more volume and punch in that same.
And a lot of
tonal
fingerstyle
character.
players like these smaller body guitars just for the fact that when they're kind of hitting a duddy tone anyway with the flesh of their thumb and fingers, they're not getting too much bass. It's still got enough poppy and projection to really like
Helps
stand out
balance
there.
it a lot more. Yeah, you're right. Dreadnoughts, you know that one. That's what what I'm holding. You are actually holding a triple O, by the way. But Dreadnought, this is what changed the world, and is named after the iconic British warship, the Dreadnought. It was the biggest, the baddest, and at that time, the loudest. So same thing.
It was really pretty groundbreaking to come out with a guitar this size when, at that time, like you said, most everything was a smaller body parlor guitar. We have one of the Style 17 guitars, was from 1896 in our shop,
size 1,
which
I think,
was
or 2,
tiny. But that was kind of the thing. In that time, most people had those small guitars, and when the Dreadnought came out, it was pretty innovative to build a guitar that big, and it quickly took off in popularity and became their most popular.
It's the flagship. It definitely is the flagship of Martin guitars. Dreadnought's going to be your loudest and most powerful. This guitar will absolutely jump out and grab you. And then you can go all the way to their jumbo or their quadruple O, also known as the M body shape. Those kind of have a little bit more low-end boost right in there, so you get a little bit more of that boomy bottom end. Each one of them does have its own. There's some of them more comfortable than others. Dreadnoughts are pretty big, and if you're a smaller size frame person, you may not like it. You may not like it even if you're a big frame person.
Or even, a lot of times I'll talk to customers that love the sound and feel of a Dreadnought when they're really like performing or out playing, but they want something in the house they can songwrite with or just sit on the couch and strum. It's much more comfortable to have one of these smaller body guitars to keep your elbow up over and also just kind of.
And it's not just this way. It's also depths too. This is a much more narrow depth than what the Dreadnought will carry, and vice versa the jumbos, and so on. We discussed earlier how most Martin guitars have an X brace, and that's true to this day too. There have been some major changes in where that's placed and what's done with it. The most common to hear about is scallop braces versus non-scallop braces. When they scallop a brace, they have that X, or even some of the other ones, and instead of it just being a straight stick of wood that goes across the top, they start to take away some of that material in the middle of it in order to free that, to have more flexibility, but yet still have strength of that overall brace. And it is an art to it. They have to be able to pay attention to how much they can take away without taking away too much structural stability. So that is the first thing. Scallop brace, definitely a major plus in, a scallop brace guitar. It sounds like they're fuller, bigger, louder. The forward shifted brace is something that Martin has kind of embraced and then not embraced, and then they did and then they didn't. The original Dreadnoughts especially from the 1930s were forward shifted brace. And what that means is the center of that X was much closer to the sound hole like it is on this guitar. This is a HC28 with a forward shifted brace. Now, after I believe 38 or 39, somewhere in the middle of that. Again, I know you guys are going to correct me. I know you will.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. It was pulled back a little bit further, and the reason why they did that was that it would actually give more strength to the back end of this guitar, causing less belly issues. It was something that all guitars And by the way, all guitars have somewhat of a belly
It's kind of like
to them.
the guy when he hits his 40s.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, honestly. It really is not. But a lot of people didn't know that when they were first seeing these guitars. This is a new thing in the 30s. So seeing these bellies develop, it started to be problems with that people were worried about. So Martin decided to kind of pull it back. Now that definitely changed the structure because now this is much stiffer and not as flexible. Some of that low end and some of the richness of what Martin had been known for kind of went away. So now we fast forward to the new versions of that. They're pulling it back on certain models to give you more of that traditional sound. Again, all of these came as needed. Honestly, I think the original ones were done for a reason with a forward shifted and a scallop braces to make them sound better. But as Martin was doing more production and more production, it was hard to keep track of how well to do that. And to kind of make up for that, what they did was came up with better ways to make them structurally more sound and kind of sacrifice a little bit of that tone. Here's a segment that I love to talk about, the serial numbers. This, as a guitar connoisseur, or even especially as a music store owner or salesperson, is the thing that I love about Martin, probably more than just about anything
on
else.
if you're the type of person that wants to be a detective and try to decipher the Gibson serial number world, or if you like things to be a little bit more logical and easy to look up, which is where I'm at.
Thank you, Mr. Chris Martin, for being smart enough to recognize that serial numbers should go sequential no matter what the model, no matter what the style. Just do them in sequential order. I love this idea. If you guys ever get a chance to go on, Martin has it now on their website, but there are many websites that have the dating of your Martin guitar based on its serial number. And basically what it comes out to is for every single year, they will post the last serial number of that year. That means every number from the year before, the last one that was there, to that last one of, let's say, 1946, every one that's in there is a 1946. That's it. And then when it goes to the 47, every number from that plus one all the way to the end of that line in 47, that's it. And it still stays that way to this day. They just keep adding digits to that. Maybe one day they're going to run out of block space and they'll make it smaller.
Add a letter to it.
Anyway,
But
it's
yeah,
a
it
very,
does
very
make much more sense.
smart way to do it. You can date easily. Anybody
I
can
love to date my guitars.
the year of your guitar or any other guitar within minutes. So I do find this to be one of the greatest attributes to a Martin guitar. If anything outside of this video, you come out of here going, yep, John thinks they're great because their serial numbers
Tell
are
what year it
wonderful.
was just by looking at the serial number.
At one point, there were variations that were made in other countries besides Mexico and
Shenandoah?
Yep, the Martin Shenandoah was a I believe Chinese-built instrument, or it might have been Japanese. I don't remember, but it was
an
out of
import
there.
from
It was with the laminate
overseas.
sides and back, and it was built for them, as well as Martin Sigma guitars. Those were also built as an import guitar, but they actually said it. So if you see a Shenandoah, it is not a guitar built in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. If you see Martin Sigma, this was the import line for Martin to be their affordable, variations, kind of like Epiphone is for Gibson, those kind of things. So it was usually a laminate guitar, more mass-produced guitar. Nowadays, everything is built in two different locations. We have the original factory in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and that's where more of your high-end guitars from the 15 series all the way up will now be built in Nazareth. And all of the other stuff down below that will be built in Navajoa, which is in Mexico. Both plants are very high-tech, well-built factories, and from what I've been
clean,
told,
like-
we're hoping to be there. Yeah, I have to say, that was one of the most impressive things. When we first went to the Martin factory in Nazareth years and years ago as tourists,
They have such dust control and spray control that it is one of the cleanest environments. It's almost like you're in an operating room.
most guitar factories are just sawdust everywhere, which they should be, honestly. I see that. But with the amount of numbers coming in here, they were able to keep a very clean work environment. It is very, very nice. They've spent a lot of time and money to make sure that they have a great environment to build guitars. So That is pretty awesome, and from what we've been told, the Navajo factory is almost identical to that. In fact, they say if you were dropped in there and had the lights turned out and nobody was in there, you wouldn't know which one you were in.
Well, obviously, if the lights were turned out, you probably wouldn't know. But I think they meant if you got there before all the workers arrived, you couldn't tell which country you were in, because they pretty much modeled the Navajo workshop to be a replica of what they're doing up in Pennsylvania.
Since both of those facilities are basically identical, a lot of people are going to want to know what is the big difference between a Navajo-built guitar versus Nazareth. Honestly, most of it's going to be the models that they're building there. They're definitely going to want to have their more inexpensive models built right now in Navajo. But that's changing. We saw this anniversary guitar that is being built in Navajo that was super high quality and is a higher price tag. But in general, that's what they're taking the advantage of in that facility, is a lower cost production rate, and to be able to still build high quality guitars, just do them at a lower price in order to hit the price points of those series and get you into a Martin guitar much more affordably than what it would be if it were built in the Nazareth factory.
And also production levels. The amount of guitars they're building, they need 2 large workshops to be able to keep up with the amount of guitars they're doing. They couldn't do all that in Nazareth. I don't think the town would be big enough to double the size of the
They're having
facility.
problems getting us guitars as it is. Imagine if they only had the one facility to do all those different models. So when setting a budget, I think it's really important to kind of know that there is such a broad range. You can get into for $150 a decent playing instrument, maybe not decent,
hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and anywhere in between. So the big thing to kind of know is you don't necessarily need to spend tons of money, but you want to be able to spend as much as you possibly can, because believe it or not, I know this sounds like a salesman's ploy here, there are definitely values to each one of those. When you get to a higher quality instrument, there are certain things that it does that a lower price variation does not do. And, this is just fact. Martin guitars obviously are going to demand a premium over some of the other brands because they've earned it. They've had many, many years of establishing themselves as one of the finest built guitars out there. They're going to get a little bit more premium for some of the things than others. So basically what I'm telling you is kind of figure out what you can spend on a guitar and then push it a little bit, just a little bit. You're usually never going to be unhappy with that. And I'm not saying that necessarily that you have to buy a Martin guitar to be happy. I'm just saying find out what that budget is, work your way through it, and
save up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having this many different series is Martin recognizing that, hey, there are people at different points in their musical journey or in their personal lives. We want to be able to offer them a quality Martin guitar at each of those price points, and we went through that a little bit with these different series. Mm-hmm. If you just really want a Martin guitar, it's your first guitar, the X series is an excellent place to start out. It's an affordable guitar. If you're ready to get out on the road and you want to step up a little bit, you got the Road series, you got the traditional models that are available in the D28. So it kind of depends on where you're at musically, but definitely kind of do a little price shopping, figure it out, and look for the features that you're looking for in your guitar. And like you said, save up a little bit more and you'll be happy that you spent just a little bit more than the entry level. I think you'll always be happy with that.
Now let's talk a little bit about where to buy. One of the things that's most important, and this is with any brand, but Martin is definitely no exception to this, buying from an authorized dealer is the only way that you can be sure that you will get your warranty. Martin does come with a lifetime warranty on most all their guitars. It is definitely something that you need to be paying attention to. They've had a great booklet out from the beginning called The Care and Feeding of Your Martin Guitar. It's really cool to see that. But if you did not buy this from an authorized dealer, your warranty is no good.
No, boy. It's also, if you do find a used Martin guitar, that could be a great option for you. But if it is very close in price to a new one, consider that the lifetime warranty is only for the original owner. Mm-hmm. So if it's only a few $100s more to buy the new guitar, it might be worth spending the money to get that lifetime warranty. But one option is right now Martin is also selling direct to consumer, which that's kind of been the move the last 10 to 15 years of some of these main manufacturers saying, hey, we got a lot of guitars, we can sell these direct to customers. That is an option. You can go on Martin. I'm sure they're going to have some of the best selection out there.
I would assume.
We've talked about this before. I believe an authorized dealer is that kind of middleman that can go between you and Martin and make sure you're getting all the inspections done. When we get guitars in, they have to go through our inspection process. And I'll say it, even some of the Martins we've had to ship back and say, you know what, this one, the neck set wasn't quite where we wanted it, or it had a ding in it that we can't sell to a customer. So we do feel there's some value in it. That may be self-serving to say that. It doesn't have to be from us, but I do believe getting from an authorized dealer might give you that little added benefit of saying, hey, these guys are going to go on bat on my behalf for any issues I have to Martin and make sure
I think that's important. Finding a dealer that you trust and have a relationship with is very helpful. Again, not to kind of just toot our own horn, but we will also help you with your warranty issues. It's just part of a customer service, which again, if you're on your own, you're just trying to contact a manufacturer and try to work through warranty issues. We actually kind of help you to get that solved, by directly contacting us. Sorry.
And another advantage, if you can go locally to your music shop, you get a chance to actually play these instruments and see how they sound and how they feel. So that's another really good thing to be looking at on your first guitar purchase.
Well, that brings us to trial and evaluation. Testing guitars in stores versus online. Obviously, this is something that and the reason why we exist is not everybody has a huge selection of guitars. And now we have Martin. We didn't have it before. So it was kind of hard to get into stores and do it. Obviously, testing something in store, you're touching that guitar. You know exactly what it is. And that is great. But I do think the world has kind of changed a little bit. There are a lot of great forums out there. There's a lot of our competitors that are great guitar dealers that really have a great return policy and ability for you to get it in your own home, test it out, get it back. Again, I would look for one of those big returns. There's all the way, there's some that'll give you 24 hours a period to go through. Personally, we have 30 days of trial that you'll be able to check it out, make sure it's the right guitar for you. So it has taken some of the sting out of having to order something that's not available right where you're at. And if you're looking for something in particular, there are a lot of great options out there right now.
And to that point, John, we did start a big, long return policy because we knew as musicians, you got to try an instrument for a while. You got to play on it. If you're new to an instrument, make sure the action is set up where you can play anywhere on the neck and it's not too high, but also not too low, where the strings are buzzing and touching the frets. If you have it for a little while, bring some of your other musician friends over, have them play the guitar, play it in a group. You really have to give it a chance to go through the paces and see how it is in your home, in your environment, before you can make sure that, hey, this was the right one for me.
Not only that, but I also think there's a key advantage to this, which is I think everybody has, not everybody, but there's a lot of us, including myself. I am definitely guilty of this, of getting something new and it's so different that I automatically have an adverse reaction to it. And it takes me a little bit of time to get, I've had this with appliances even, where I get it in here, it's like, that's got a blue LCD panel and I hate that. And after a while, I'm like, at night, that blue really shows up a whole lot better than the amber one does. You know what I mean? And that's silly. But there is a key aspect there to be able to kind of live with an instrument for a little bit before you kind of make that judgment. And if it's just a short amount of time, you kind of just actually just go, I don't like that. Yeah. And I've had tons of things that have grown on me that end up becoming some of my favorite guitars, honestly. One of the things I think everybody needs to know when you're buying, especially a first-time Martin guitar buyer, you need to take care of this instrument. This is a tool that you need to take care of, and it will take care of you forever. There's a reason why the guitars that are still here from the turn of the century are still around, and it's because they were taken care of. There are a lot of them that didn't make it, and they were not taken care of. In order to maintain your warranty, two major things have to be done. You need to humidify this guitar, and that's with any brand. 45 to 50% humidity is ideal. We want to keep that maintained at all times. And two, no extreme temperatures. If it gets too hot, it is going to have issues. Glues are going to separate, wood is going to crack. Same thing will happen when it gets too cold, especially for any major changes in that. If we go from an extreme hot to a cool, it's going to have issues, or vice versa. So you need to take care of these instruments. Do not expect, just because it's a Martin guitar, that it's going to hold up forever. And just because your grandfather's Martin guitar held up forever does not mean that it will without any work. in the end, if this is your first time to buy a Martin guitar, you're not going to be dissatisfied with it. Martin has been an iconic brand for a very, very long time, and they're not doing anything to jeopardize that. So all the way from their least expensive guitars to their highest end guitars, there are high quality, well-designed, and well-built instruments. You're definitely going to be able to find lots of options out there. Obviously, we would prefer that you bought from the Acoustic Shop, and if you do, check out our website, theacousticshop.com, where we will have lots of options here, as well as many other guitar brands, from inexpensive options all the way to other boutique options to kind of cover this. And again, that's what Martin has been doing forever, is they have such a big, broad range. We also have that in multiple brands, so you can check that out. And as well as, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, like Jeremy said, so much information. In fact, what we're going to do right now is I'm going to point out a video that we did a little bit ago, which is top 10 favorite vintage Martin guitars that I've ever played. Kind of stories of guitars that you may not even be familiar with. It's like the D2. Who knew about that? Did you know about the D2?
R2D2.
I didn't know about it until I played one. So anyway, that's kind of a fun video. Check that out. And again, I hope you find a guitar that fits you and suits all of your needs. And maybe it is a Martin. Maybe it's not.
Maybe this guide helped you in your selection process.
But either way, join us for our next video, because I'm pretty sure you might find some cool information in that. And you may not. Who knows?